Rhys Stanley has been backed in by Geelong for Friday night's AFL preliminary final against Brisbane after the Cats weighed up the recall for Jon Ceglar.Ceglar made his club debut in round 20 and remained in the side for round 23 as questions lingered over Stanley's immediate future. Watch the video above. Latest on Essendon's coach search.Analysis, local footy and the biggest moments. 7 and 7 Plus are the home of footy shows for every fan. Stream them all for free on 7 Plus. Stanley was the man picked for the qualifying final over Collingwood, but he was outshone by Pies pair Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox, with Mark Bleakhobbs preferred by Geelong for two crucial centre bounces late in the 6-point win. The Cats subsequently used their week off to consider whether Stanley is their best option to take on returning Lions ruckman Oscar McInerney. Loading tweet. Geelong coach Chris Scott has now confirmed Stanley has been retained, having featured in Thursday's light session while Ceglar watched on. Jake Colchesney has also been locked in after a knee injury forced him to be substituted out of the final against Collingwood in the second quarter. Scott said the Cats will go in unchanged, but Mark O'Connor, who was the substitute against the Pies, remains a live option to tag Lachie Neale. He's had a great season and I'd expected he'd win the Brownlow. He certainly has to be in that conversation given the year he's had, Scott said of Neale. In the last 2 weeks he's been terrific as well, so he needs to get some attention. It's kind of Russian roulette if you try to play too offensively against him. As always with us, it's a collective and it can be a little deceiving to see the matchups at the first bounce because it could well be very different 5 or 6 minutes later. Tough midfielder Brendan Parfitt, who Scott admitted was unlucky to be left out, appears set to be an emergency again. Geelong are clear on what they need to do to defeat the Lions and progress to their first grand final since losing the 2020 decider against Richmond. Scott has predicted another fierce battle against the Lions, who are riding high on the confidence from their first win at the McGee since 2014. It will be the second preliminary final between the teams in 3 years after Geelong thumped the Lions by 40 points at the Gabba in 2020. Geelong will enter the clash as hot favourites after winning their past 14 games and claiming the minor premiership. Brisbane have played 2 pretty close games and played well enough to beat probably the best team of the modern era. Richmond and Melbourne might be the second best, so that's pretty good form, Scott said. We have always been pretty clear, and the competition would have been clear, around what their game looks like when it's really going. I'd refer to the best teams over my time in footy, and generally they don't trick you. You know what they're good at, they're just hard to stop. Meanwhile, Sydney great Josh Kennedy has ruled himself out of a possible farewell game in the grand final after suffering another setback with his troublesome hamstrings. The 2012 Premiership player announced in August that he would retire at the end of the season, but he had not given up hope of playing one last AFL game. He then suffered a ruptured hamstring in the VFL and has now injured it again at training on Thursday. Kennedy was spotted limping and embracing teammates during the session at the SCG. With OP. And finally, thank you all for watching the video. Please like and comment your opinion so we can discuss together. Don't forget to subscribe, press the bell to follow and update many other interesting news. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.